Okay, so I'd like to welcome Chris Drumheller from New Creations Landscape Services, also known as Diggin with Drummy on Instagram. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It is going great, my man. Going great.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for coming on to the Lawn Care Business Success podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out and joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. I look forward to just going back and forth with you. So give me all you got.
Awesome. So let's just get right into it then. So maybe
All
tell
right.
us a bit about yourself and your business.
All right. So my name's Chris. I'm 29 years old, believe it or not. I know that might make some of you older guys out there a little sick to your stomach, but I'll be 30 this October. And I've been in the lawn care industry for about 10 years, honestly. It's at least the number that I like to round up to.
Okay.
And I used to work for a company, a small company out of Coppell, which is just a few miles from here, named Austin Gardens Landscape Services. And it was working for him off and on for about 6 years that I realized that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses.
Hmm.
And then so probably much like everybody else, just decided I got a wild hair to go into business for myself. I got tired of taking orders, and that's just the truth. That's the God honest truth. And so while I was going through a faith-based program here in Denton, I just went into business. We went another buddy of mine, it used to be a partnership actually, and it used to be New
Okay.
Creation Landscape is
Okay.
what my old company with a partner used to be. And that business didn't do very well. He had a bad drinking problem. I have a big pride problem. And so that business didn't actually last longer than a year. It tanked. And then so I went back into business for myself under the new DBA, New Creations Landscape Services. So that in a nutshell is how it all got started. So
Nice. So yeah, I hear you there with that. You sort of get that where you get fed up with a job or with the boss, as you say, right? And you
oh
kind of have
yeah.
that aha moment of it's time to you know just calling you to go out on your own. So that's very cool. I totally get that. So
Oh
is
yeah.
lawn care your main income, or is it a side hustle?
Lawn care right now is actually my main income. I mean,
Okay.
I am all 147% in lawn care. When I say lawn care, to get more specific, actually, my revenue, the big source of income is usually the landscape design. I
Okay.
really like to redo people's flower beds, put in color. But I mean, overall, broadly, I'm just encompassing everything is just landscape. That is my main
Yes.
source of income, is my business. So
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Very cool. So you talked about having jobs before with bosses you didn't like or didn't get along
mhm.
with. So what first attracted you to the lawn care industry? And the second part of that question is made you want to start your own business, but I guess the boss part kind of, as you mentioned there, alluded to made you want to start your own business. But what first attracted you to the lawn care industry in the first place?
Okay. Well, what first attracted me to the industry when I was a kid, actually.
Hmm.
To be honest with you, this goes way back before working with companies. Um, I used to love to dig in the dirt. I am not kidding you.
Yeah.
And my mom, bless her heart, could tell you stories. I used to dig holes in the dirt. I'm talking, they were like 5, 6 feet wide, 8 feet
Wow.
deep. And then I would hide the jungle gym over them. And so I'm no stranger to digging holes in the dirt. And, so when I got a little bit older, like I won't say quite my teens yet,
Hmm.
I was still in the single digits, but I remember that there used to be I think it was the north side of my mom's house growing up as a kid. She used to have two rose bushes there that never really did well. And that was her flower bed, that was her baby. And she
Okay.
just got to a point like she just couldn't manage it anymore. She really couldn't manage it anymore between her work and my dad at the time. My biological father was just really bedridden and had a problem with pain pills. And so I thought, what could I really do to put a smile on her face? And so it was only then that I actually completely de-weeded the flower beds. She had like bricks, how sometimes like the homeowners have just the leftover bricks from whenever the house was built. They had them in
Okay.
like upright stagger position. And so I
Yeah.
completely redid everything. and made it look so beautiful. It took me like a whole day, you know, and I was a kid, you know.
Yeah.
And that really and truthfully actually is a story I tell everybody. That is what sparked my passion for continuing to dig in the dirt, make things that nobody thought could ever be possible, you know, to make them beautiful. So that's, you know, that's what started my passion. Now, what made me kind of like get tired of my boss, you know, so to speak, is it was really operational. Operationally, he did things that just did not sit well with me.
Mm.
And I know as a worker, you know, somebody who's a grunt or a foreman, you know, they bounce around from a lot of different companies because of those operations, you know, and you know, so it just got to the point where I wanted to do better, and I was going to do better, and I wasn't going to let anything stop me. So.
Okay. Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. Sometimes it can be quite frustrating when you're on the other side and seeing that there's better ways to do something or more efficient ways to do something. And,
Yeah.
you know, you're stuck without a say. And, you know, being
No, no.
self-employed gives you that full control, right? Where you can,
It
you know,
does. It can,
yeah.
yeah. But you know,
eh,
like now I realize that I'm the boss giving orders sometimes that don't necessarily make sense, you know, if I have to
Yeah. Yeah.
hire subcontractors. Because sometimes jobs do get bigger than myself. So now I'm the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I started my lawn care business, I started as in a franchise. So I bought a franchise lawn care business,
Okay.
and
Awesome.
you know, I was like, hey, that's cool. Like I'm my own boss now and all that. But again, I had all these ideas on how to promote my business and how to really hustle to build customers and stuff like that. And because I was in a franchise, I had to pitch all those ideas to the franchisor.
Yeah.
And nothing would fly. They wouldn't let me do anything because I couldn't do anything outside of the franchise rules that would make my company, my individual franchise stand out compared to all the other
Uh,
franchisees. And it got so frustrating because I was like, you guys sitting in the Stone Ages here? Like there's the internet, all this stuff that we could be doing, right? And it's funny because I was
yeah.
like, I went into business for myself, and yet I was in that same position going like, I could be doing this so much better on my own than being constrained by these franchise rules. And ultimately that's why I left the franchise only after 5 years, because I was like, this is
Right.
crazy, right? It's like just too restrictive, right? I was like, there's so many better
Oh,
ways to be doing this. And then I left and started my own brand, and it just took off right away. So
yeah.
it was good to see. So kind of neat that you said that with that part of it. So with your own business, do you have employees or are you a one-man operation?
Right now, as of this very moment, I am a one-man solo man operation. Uh, but
Okay.
I did try the approach to working with other employees, but I got so caught up in just trusting them and not really going over their work and double checking everything, doing the things that I knew that I needed to be doing, that I
Okay.
failed in that area. And so
Oh,
I'm back to just me now.
just you. Okay. Yeah. And that's cool. That's cool. Everybody's got different way. For me, I'm exactly the same. I have I've done a few videos lately about employees, why you should hire them, and in other videos why you shouldn't hire them. And I've always just enjoyed
Exactly.
being a you know, just on my own, a solo operator. Gives me the most joy.
Absolutely.
May not be you know, in the end game financially maybe the best decision as I get older
Yeah.
and can't do as much work,
Yeah.
but right, it still is what makes me the happiest, is being by myself. So how would you, Chris Drumheller, define success? This is a question that I love asking because, as I've said many times on the podcast, when I ask an entrepreneur, it's always a different answer. But when you ask somebody who's
Right.
not a business owner, they always give you the same answer, being, you know, money is what defines success. But an entrepreneur never gives you that answer. So,
Yeah.
how would you define success?
Man, that is a great question. And I hope I go against the grain in this answer. To me, honestly, success has nothing to do with money.
Hmm.
I mean, it has nothing to do with money. I know as an entrepreneur, yeah, that's the goal, is how much money you can make, how many fancy trucks you can have, how many employees you can get. But honestly, to me, success is measured by the legacy that one man leaves behind.
Hmm.
And for me, that is to be a good husband, a great father,
Hmm.
you know, and even one day, hopefully, Lord willing, a granddaddy. And so to me, success is measured by the legacy that you leave behind.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer. Very, very cool. Very aligned with my beliefs as well. Right. I always find it funny when I named the podcast, named the channel Lawn Care Business Success, and then people are like, "What? Like you're just like a solo operator? You're like you don't have this huge company. Like how can you call yourself, successful and all that stuff?" It's because there's a lot more to life than just those things,
Absolutely.
right? Being able to support and have lawn care as my only income for 13 years now, and be
Yeah.
happy and have time with my family and my kids growing up and walking them to school when they were younger, and having that time and freedom. That's success to me.
Amen.
And not having to
Amen.
worry
Yeah.
about, at the same time, not having to worry about paying the bills and stuff like that, because you're doing what you need to make enough to cover that. But yeah, I'm not going to buy a Lambo anytime soon, if ever. But I'm okay with that, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
it's all good.
Yes, sir.
So in your business, what type of equipment do you use? So I use this sort of as just to give people an idea of the size properties that you're servicing. With me, I use a 21-inch mower for 80% or so of the properties that I do, and then my 36-inch walk behind for the few handful of larger properties. But I'm in the dense city. So what type of equipment are you using?
Right. Just a shovel. Just a shovel.
Just
No, I'm just kidding. I got a little bit more than just a shovel, man. But I love overworking my back muscles. That's for sure. No, for lawn care, I actually have I don't remember the year, but
Okay.
it is an older Kubota. It's a ZD18. It's a diesel. And then I also have my Honda HRC 216.
Oh, there you
You
go.
know all about that.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta say, really, those are, and I'm an Echo advocate, not
Okay.
just a fanboy. I've used Echo all my life,
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm getting hopefully soon ready to phase out of all the old 266s that I have, because Echo is using the new X series,
Yeah.
and so I've got all the Echo equipment, backpack blowers, sprayers, weed eaters,
Nice.
string trimmers, whatever you want to call them. But I'll tell you what, that Honda HRC 216 I was not a big fan of the clutch, the blade clutch, because
Okay.
I'm an old school Toro kind of guy, like I
Yeah.
want to, as I walk, these legs were made for walking, so I'm no stranger to walking.
Yeah.
And so you of all people probably could appreciate this, but on those old school Toros, whenever you're pushing that Toro, and you come to the end and you're ready to get it into a turn, you push down with that thing around and then walk it back. But
Yeah.
my only problem with that Honda mower is because that blade clutch really doesn't allow you to do that. You really actually have to walk through your turns and stuff. But I love it. I'm a believer in that machine, and I will probably continue uh, purchasing those Hondas. Great for mulching. Love it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice. Nice. I've actually been, it's kind of odd, but I've actually been quite frustrated with mine the last couple of years. Um, I've
Really?
used them religiously for 13 years. And the first one I
Yeah.
had, I used, and like I said, I service about 80% of my properties with the Honda. And that first one I
Hmm.
used for 10 years. And the
Yeah.
thing just
Wow.
kept going. And the only reason I decided to replace it was the deck got completely rusted out because I mow in the rain all the time. Um,
Right.
so the engine's fine, the transmission's fine, but the deck like literally had holes in it. And as I would try to weld them, it would actually blow bigger holes in it because the metal was so thin from all the so I
Oh
decided, you know what,
wow.
I'll get a new one. So I got a new one and started getting some issues with it that I was kind of not really too happy with. And then that one got stolen. So I was like, well, at least, if you get any, silver lining on a cloud would be, well, at least I get a new Honda out of the deal, right?
Right.
And so I got a new one, and it has the exact same issues as that
Oh,
second.
wow.
Yeah, so I've been very kind of frustrated with it lately. I'm actually thinking about switching to something else to try, just because of
Oh, okay.
the luck with the last two, and the two were bought 2 years apart with the same issues. So we'll have to talk about that off air and see if you had
Let's
any
do
sort
it. They don't make them like they used to, huh?
yeah, I think they're a bit maybe not as quite as rugged as they were before, but still, probably one of the top 20 ones for sure out there. So what is, you talked about that, the diesel Kubota?
Yeah.
And
Yes, it is.
of all your tools, whether it's backpack blowers or the trimmers or the diesel, so what is your favorite tool and why?
Oh my gosh. Um, I love my Kubota. I love my
Okay.
Kubota. I really do. Uh, and not just because I get to sit on my butt on some days all day long, and feel the wind on my face, I just love it. I love that machine, and not just because it's a tank, not just because I got it as a gift from a very, very, very lovely lady, very dear friend of mine. Honestly, I don't even think I'd be in business if it wasn't for her. So
Oh, nice.
shout out to Miss Diana. I love that. I really, I've put it through a lot, but I really love that machine, really just because of the sentimental attachment, and that's the
Oh,
truth.
okay.
So, but
Okay.
it's my
Cool.
baby. That's my baby, and I'll never get rid of it. Just like my '96 Chevy is my baby, and
There
I'm
you
never
go.
getting rid of that truck.
That's awesome. So how do you find, I've always wondered, just sort of off the topic there, about the diesel. I've always wondered about the diesel mowers. Do you find any, does like the diesel smoke ever get, overly, um, bothersome when you're sitting there sort of right in close
Right.
proximity with that sort of stuff? Just a
No,
out of
honestly, it's not
curiosity.
too bad. It's only when you first fire the machine up, really.
Okay.
It runs a little rough, and that's usually about the time where I get the blackout smoke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But once it's running all day long, I mean, it runs really well and hardly any smell. But some
Okay.
some days on a day I might get the smell, but really not a bad smoke problem. Not yet.
Okay.
So not
Okay.
yet.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. I've always just wondered about that, right? I know because my truck is
Yeah.
diesel, and sometimes just sitting at a stoplight or something, I'll get diesel coming through into the cab, and I'm like it's a bit annoying. And then I always remember there's mowers that have diesel. I've never actually talked to anybody that's ever tried one, right? So that's good to know. Let's see
Yeah.
here. So do you, in your uh, landscaping company, do you offer any services that are not lawn care or landscaping related, like power washing, window cleaning, that sort of stuff?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I do offer those services. Yes, even just most recently, a fence job. If you take that out of landscape services, I guess. I mean, some
Okay.
would call fencing more of just general construction, but
Hmm.
not a whole lot. No, I really, I tend to stick to what I know because I'm the face and I'm the guy out there doing the work. But if I run into something that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, then I've managed to build a pretty decent network, and so I've got a lot of people who are more than willing to take on the work if I can't do it. So
Okay. Cool. So in your business, do you offer commercial and residential work? And if so, what type do you prefer and why?
okay, I do offer both commercial and residential work. That really right now is for the lawn care, the seasonal maintenance, mowing, trimming, shrub trimming, pre-emergent for the flower bed, stuff like that. I haven't really had the chance to offer any landscape design work yet for a commercial
Okay.
property. I say that, but because I am actually working on a three-phase proposal right now but I don't like to
Okay.
count my chickens before they hatch, as my grandpa would say. So um, maybe if I get it, fingers crossed that I actually will be a little bit more comfortable into working commercial construction.
Yeah, yeah,
But that is a whole different ball game. That is a whole
yeah.
different ball game that I don't know
Mhm.
if I'm really just ready for that just yet.
Yeah.
So we'll
Oh,
see.
okay. Okay. So is that like a new construction build or something for
It will be a full landscape design where it will be doing some privacy fencing, retaining walls, dry river creek beds, and some even larger actually fences. Possibly doing a welded security gate. Possibly looking into do something like that. So it really is. It will be the possibility of big construction. So I've got friends that are builders in the community. I've got a lot of people that I can bounce stuff around. So I'm very blessed in that regard if I need help.
Mhm.
So, but again, to answer your question, like I only offer lawn maintenance currently to commercial and residential, but no really big landscape designs as of yet, officially as of yet.
Okay. Nice. And so you said you do some commercial maintenance though.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Very, very cool. Very cool. So that were you approached by the project manager to submit a quote for that landscape design, or was that something you were seeking out and had your eyes sort of open to sort of look for those opportunities to come up?
Right. I was approached on Instagram actually.
Oh, well. Oh, there you go.
Literally, yeah. I've actually gotten a decent amount of work via Instagram, which is kind of crazy because some would say I'm not very professional. Um, man, I just have a good time. No, it was actually the owner, and I'll leave his name and what he does. That's
Yeah.
not really too important. But I was approached by him, and right now we're just in the talking, creativity,
Okay.
bouncing back things process right now. So.
Yeah. Very cool. Very, very cool. So this next question is one where people, when I ask, usually, can cause pause for thought, where they got to sort of think about it. And that is, share with us a time you struggled in your business and what you learned or did to overcome it.
Okay. So this one is an easy one for me.
Okay.
And it's easy because I've had the privilege of doing a lot of different installs over the years, and I've met a lot of people over the years. And what most people see on Instagram is a success story. They all see the glit and the glam, but what they don't see is the heartache. And
Hmm.
the jobs that even I screwed up. And I'll be the first to admit that I have screwed up a lot of jobs. But
Hmm.
I've been told by a friend that that's how you get accredited, especially even by like the Better Business Bureaus, because it's
Yeah.
not if you make mistakes, it's when you make them and how you correct them. So
Yeah.
I was on a job site in Double Oak. It's just a few neighboring cities, and it was probably one of the biggest jobs I think that I've had to date.
Okay.
Um, it was these are $500,000 to $1 million homes. They sit on 2 acre, 3 acre lots, and this guy had a very nice pool. He just spent he spent a bunch of money getting a brand new outdoor gazebo. I mean, this thing was just state of the art. It was nice, and he really wanted the best landscape. And my name somehow got to his lap, and I was very blessed by that. Actually, it was by one of my competitors, actually, who's a really good friend of mine. He actually
Mm.
gave this gentleman my name and my information. So I won the proposal for complete removal. We're talking over 10, it was 10 to 12 cubic yards. And my nursery guys are really nice. So for 1 cubic yard on their skid is probably two.
Mm.
Uh, so it probably ended up being double of that. And landscape lighting. I mean, it was complete landscape design. It was a full
Okay.
package. And at that point in time, I was using a lot of guys from a local ministry called the Denton Freedom House. It was also the ministry I spoke of earlier that I was actually a part of, that I went through the
Okay.
program myself. And things started off great. They started off great. The demo process was great. Well, I screwed up as an owner and didn't realize that the help that I had needed to hire, I didn't reserve them in enough time, in enough advanced time. And so those guys at that ministry had they what they call lake day, so they went out for a whole week at a local ranch, and so I didn't have those guys to help, and so it was very slim pickings. So I've got the biggest job of my life, no help, and I'm literally on the job site. And I tell you, nothing with this job went right. At that time, I got completely in and over my head. We started doing things out of order. And so
Okay.
things just became a giant mess. And then I'll fast forward. Eventually, the customer pulled me aside. He looked me in the eye and he said, Chris, there hasn't been anything enjoyable about this experience from you. Nothing. There's been nothing enjoyable, and I want a refund. I want my money back. And we actually talked a little bit more, and he looked me straight in the eye. And at this point in time, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I mean, I'm balling. I'm literally balling, because to me at that time, it felt like everything was coming to an end, because this was a big job. I mean, I did not have the capital at that time to give this guy his money back. I
Yeah.
didn't. And so I'm freaking out, and he just looked me in the eye and he said, there's been one person I've seen. I think at this point in time, we're on the project for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He looked me in the eye and he said, Chris, there's been one person I've seen out here every day before the sun got here, and had stayed even after the sun disappeared. And he said, that was you. He knew about the ministry that I work for and what it meant to me to be able to use these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he told me, and this is the advice that he gave me, and what I took away from me. He said, and this may be weird to a lot of people, but he said, you cannot use these guys. You
Yeah.
cannot use these guys, because even though they are an able body, they just didn't really have the skill set or even the desire to work. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the drive or the passion that I did. And so they really were just able bodies. And there were sometimes 5 or 6 of them at a time. I really was slim pickings. I got what I could get. And so I took away from that job site to not be blinded by greed,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a lot of zeros for me, for a little
Yeah.
guy. I learned to not be blinded by greed, to be better disciplined in projects, to fully understand a project myself from top to bottom, not just, oh, this is easy, just fly by the seat of your pants.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I prayerfully considered not really using guys from that ministry, and it's even bigger than guys behind that ministry. It's just using subcontract help in general. And so
Yeah.
that is when I made the decision to really just go solo.
Mm.
And some may call it pride, but really is, I'm able, if there's anybody who's able bodied, it's me.
Yeah.
And I'm able bodied, and I can right now, because of not only my age, but because of my drive and my passion, I can handle a lot on my own, and
Mm.
I will. And with, eventually, Lord willing, like, I will get to the point where I will be able to work on the business, not in the business, and I will have employees. But for where I'm at right now in my business, I'm very thankful for that gentleman out there in Double Oak who really, despite everything, spoke life into me
Yeah.
when nothing seemed possible at that time. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my story.
Wow, that's very a very moving story there, to the life lessons that you learned from there, and some hard business lessons to learn, and
Yeah,
basically swallow your pride, and learn from those things, and realize what you're good at, and realize take a message and a teaching from what this uh, customer was telling you, where it could have been so easy to turn defensive, and get into an argument and all that sort of stuff, right? So very, very,
absolutely.
very good on you to realize, and not try to cover up or make excuses, right? And just say, basically, uh, realize that it was truth being spoken, and that you were
Yeah,
in over your head, and that's okay, right? Things happen, right?
absolutely.
Um,
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
My company
Yeah.
slogan is "There's growth and change." And so,
Yeah.
man, if you don't go out there knuckleheaded like Drummy and bump your heads a few times, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not gonna learn, you know. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. And we can be our own worst critics at times when it comes stuff,
oh yeah,
things to that, right?
oh yeah,
Lawn care for me has worked. It's, kind of connected all the dots. Um, but, and I've said this, a million times before, like I noticed you have, Brian's awesome T-shirt on today, and we've talked about
yeah.
this. Me selling T-shirts or
I've got yours too, by the way.
yeah, I know that, and we actually talked about you on that latest interview. At the very
That's so
end,
funny.
we talked about the what was it? I called it the, what did I call it? The big T-shirt debacle of 2018, and the
Oh yeah,
controversy, right? And I said,
yeah.
I said the best thing about all that came out of all that was when guys, and I was referring to you as one of the ones, were coming out on social media with both shirts and saying, you know, I bought them both. I like them both, that sort of thing. I was like, that was awesome. That's like the true community and stuff, right? There's no need for people to make stories about, that we're ripping each other's ideas off and things like that. Um, if it's between the two of us was fine, then nobody else should have an issue with
No, absolutely.
that sort of stuff, right? So yeah, that was totally cool. But I talk about those types of things and going, and when I put like ads in my podcast and things like that, and it's like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's what I do. It's what I've always done.
Yeah,
Even in elementary school,
you're a
I
monster.
was trying, yeah, it was like, I was always had, paper routes and things when I was 11. I was always, trying to sell my toys and things like that and trying to make, extra money and stuff as a kid, right? It's like, that's how I am. I'm an entrepreneur. I like trying ideas and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's just crazy when you come into that sort of a thing, right? And the lawn care, like I said, for me, it worked. But there's 15 other business ideas that I started and tried and
hmm,
worked at that all failed. And
yeah.
the funny thing is that I've used and learned lessons from each of those things. And I've now, in lawn care, applied every single one of those things that I tried and failed at. Um,
That's
from
awesome.
a sign business, doing vinyl decals and stuff, where, then I got to my lawn care business. I did my own signs. I did my own things, right? I dabbled in doing websites for people. Well, when I got to the lawn care business, I made my own website. I did the whole podcast thing, setting that all up. I went into, thought I was going to be an audio engineer and went to school for that and got my certificate for that. And I worked at some studios and I did some post-production for movies and things like that. And now I'm finding myself getting into YouTube going, hey, I learned how to do some of this stuff. I learned how to, navigate my way through this sort of stuff. So it's funny, the things when you look back, when you look forward, you're like, oh, I failed. I'm such a loser. I'm such this. And then 10 years down the road, you look backwards and you connect those dots and you go,
Yeah,
wow, I
absolutely.
really didn't fail. I learned all these valuable lessons that got me to where I am here today. And it
That's
also,
awesome.
you can't ever, and the same with your story there, you can't ever look at that as a failure, really. It's a lesson, it's an education
Yeah,
as you
life
go
lessons.
along,
I
right?
call those growing pains. That's what they are. They're
Yeah,
growing pains, you know?
yeah. And you'll learn from that, and you'll never make that mistake again, right? When a lesson is learned properly, you'll never make it again. If you're not paying
I
attention
agree.
and you repeat those, that's when it's a problem, right? Is if you
Right.
go and do the same thing over again, right? It's when you're ignorant to those lessons that are being shown to you. But obviously, like you shared there, that's not the case. So that's awesome. I love stories like that. So inspirational. Um, so this next one, I can, as you're talking, you're explaining your stories, you're talking, I can feel your passion when it comes to, and you talked about digging holes as a little kid, right? It's like,
Yeah.
this is what you were meant to do. What is your favorite thing about being self-employed?
My favorite thing about being self-employed, really, and the truth is working my own schedule. To be honest with you,
Mm.
that really in itself has opened up a lot of doors for me to be more proactive and productive in my own personal life. And so I personally really enjoy that. Is I get to work my own schedule. And don't get me wrong, like that schedule, like it can be from, I mean, I've been starting working up at waking up at 4:30s now, going to the gym, so my
Mhm.
days now start at 4:30. And then I try so hard to stop it at, 6 o'clock, but we all realize that that is completely unrealistic, and
Mhm.
business is business and it happens, your phone's going to ring at 7:30 and I'm not going to be like, well, I'm not going to answer this, business hours are closed, like I'm probably still going to answer my call. So to have that luxury and those privileges, to me, outside of just the passion that I have for this
Yeah.
industry and what it means to be my business, it's just those luxuries. And so that is really nice to have.
Awesome. Very, very cool. It sounds a lot, like I said, a lot of your, what you talk about, your stories and stuff all align with what I'm about too. That freedom, that, being able to do what you want when you want with your business,
Hmm.
and service the properties that you want, not having people tell you how to do it. Just that freedom
Yeah,
really makes
absolutely. My friend of mine got me this is somewhat related. She got me an old koozie, and I love her to death. I call her like she's my mother hen. She's like one of
yeah.
my spiritual mothers out there. She got me a koozie that said, "If a man tells you he's gonna do it, there's no need to remind him every day for the next 6 months." And so I love that because it just reminds me, like, like I even times with my customers, I haven't been the best at communication, but like one thing that I stand firm on and I know and I believe to be true, and I can even speak for all my customers, is that if I do say I'm going to do something, then I will do it.
Hmm.
And so that's again, it's just expounding a little more on why I like, just those privileges and those luxuries. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
that's
take
funny.
6 months to actually get around to it. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
but
Yeah. No, it's funny. I think I did a video on this recently about, just some growing pains, and a new customer that I picked up this year, that, I added all these new customers last year, and one of them, at the end of the year here, is starting to give me some issues. He's saying I wasn't there on a day, for a week, that I didn't mow his lawn. He's saying that there were no leaves to clean up when his yard was covered in leaves to clean up each week, and all this stuff. And, he's asking for a refund on stuff. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you're telling me I wasn't there on a day? Like, you don't know me very well, because I'm always there. I never miss a day. Like, if it's pouring rain and stuff, I'm there. I'm mowing your lawn. Nothing is stopping me unless it's like torrential downpours, and, everything's getting flooded and stuff like that. Like, if I say you're on the schedule for that day, you're on the schedule for that day. So
right.
I was like, this guy does not know me very well, right? Because I am there all the time, right? I'm like, there's no way
He's
he
just one of those
has
guys.
as an excuse, because, you know it's like, I will redo. I've had times where I something will come up, say with one of my kids, and it's like, okay, can you take me to this place this day? It's at this time. I'm like, oh, it's at the end on a Thursday. That means I'm gonna miss, this one mow. I will
Hmm.
reschedule every single mow that whole week, so that I don't miss that one mow, and get them all
Yeah.
still in the same order, right? And it's like,
Right.
not missing them in the same order, just, being able to just shuffle, right? I'm like, so when this guy thing, I was like, yeah, he does not know me well, right? It's like that, what you said about that koozie, right? If you ask somebody to do something, they'll do it, right? It's just, so
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. Um, so in your business, in what ways do you market? and maybe share your number one marketing tip.
Okay. My business, I first started out doing brochures,
Okay.
trifold brochures,
Okay. Yeah.
and I think I printed off like several thousand at Vistaprint. Business cards, because I mean I wouldn't be an entrepreneur or anybody with wild hair to get their business going off the ground without getting some good old fashioned business cards, and so I
Mhm.
have those too as well. And a website. Those three really were all I did as far as marketing is concerned.
Okay.
Now, currently, I haven't actually really done a big marketing push.
Mm.
Uh, and I don't know if I should openly admit that.
Mm.
Because right now, honestly, like my biggest marketing is word of mouth.
Okay.
Word of mouth still gets around. It really does. Almost every single call I get, I always ask, and I ask because it helps me know.
Yes.
How have you heard about me? Do you
Hmm.
mind? How did you hear about me? And so the majority of the responses I get is word of mouth. Oh, well, I've got your number from so and so, and you did work with them, and they recommended you. So word of mouth has really it's kept me going, and I have really honestly haven't found a real need where I'm at right now in my business to really push for any other forms of marketing other than Facebook and Instagram, in all honesty. So.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I'm sort of the same way. As I mentioned earlier, how when I went on my own, because I had all these ideas about using the internet and stuff when I was with that franchise, and they're like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And when I went on my own and built my own brand and started doing those
Yeah.
things, I started to see immediate results. And I still do. And I haven't, other than my very first year on my own, where I went door to door, put flyers, all that
Right.
stuff. I haven't done that anymore. It's everything sort of has just taken off, and
Yep.
this past year has been the craziest I've had, and where I couldn't keep up with the amount of phone calls coming in, and it was just too much to handle.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's nothing to you're saying you shouldn't even know if you should openly admit that or not. But it's like it's just you get to a point where it's like, what do you do, right? Like you're if you've got enough work to handle,
Yeah.
there's no need to keep marketing and putting things out there, right? So yeah, very interesting, especially the word of mouth part of it. That's very cool to hear as well. With me, it's more the Google my business listing and my website.
Yeah.
And I do the exact same
Yeah.
thing that you said there. I keep
That's
track of
good.
every single one of them on my phone in the notes app. I got a list
Hmm.
there. I keep a running tally. Every call that comes in, I put a check mark for, you saw my website or Google Places or word of mouth or, how they found me, right? And then I keep track of, where these calls are coming from throughout the whole year, right? It's obviously simple and
That's
easy.
good to know.
Ask that question when you've got a customer, and can give you, tells you a lot about your business. And
It really does.
if,
It tells
if
you a lot.
you, yeah, and if you want to market, where to focus in on, right? What's working, what's not working.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Absolutely. I completely forgot about Google. I'm even on Google.
uh,
I don't know how I always forget about that. Yeah, that's actually done well. Yeah,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh wow, oh yeah, Google. Um, I get a few calls from Google, not gonna lie, and I've only just recently updated and gotten on Google within the last few months, and so
Okay.
it was a whole fiasco, and I don't think we have enough time to really talk about it. But it was really turns out it was a lot easier to get verified on Google than I realized. I just made it complicated. But I've gotten that. I've actually landed a couple jobs, fairly decent jobs actually for myself. So
Nice.
yeah, word of mouth, and I think Google honestly would
Yeah.
be my top two right now.
Yeah. I think once Google clicks for a person, like once it sort of settles in there after a few months or so, it just
Mhm.
it can just take off. And if you have a website as well that people can naturally, when they're on Google, then they'll naturally go to your website to get more
Right.
information and stuff, right? It just works together. It can blow up for you and make
Yeah.
things like, so it's funny. I told the story before too. One of the first things I did the first year was I marketed in the local newspaper, did an ad and stuff, right? And that got me like nothing. And it cost me so much money and got me like
Yeah.
no calls. And every year I feel bad for them. They're always calling saying, we got a special for ads and stuff. I'm like, hell no, it's like, Google's free, and it's like,
Yep.
I don't know how you guys are in business, right? It's like,
True.
and like you got all these people paying for ads in your newspaper, and then you got people buying the newspaper to buy a newspaper full of ads. I'm like, I'm like, that's like old school thinking, right?
Yep.
Okay, so one of the most common questions I get in my business is, what do I do in the winter? So is there a winter or off season in your business? And if so, what do you do in the winter? And if it's not work related, then maybe you could talk about a hobby or whatever else that you may do.
Well, I would say in the almost 2 years that I've been running this business on my
Yeah.
own, last winter was my first winter, and this winter was actually a little bit worse than the last winter. For me personally, I have been blessed in the winters. With the way that my company is designed and the way that I want to get it towards is
Yeah.
I don't have to necessarily worry so much about the dormant winters because of the knowledge and the hands-on experience that I have, like doing fences, doing hardscaping, retaining walls, patios, paper walkways, blackstone walkways, whatever it may be, or even low voltage lighting. And I have actually even done a few water features myself. So I have a lot of hands-on training and experience that should not allow me to be dormant in the winter. However, that may even go back into the marketing question. I may actually sometime soon push for specific for a few of those specific services that I'm able to do in the winter, because I live in Texas. We don't have a winter here. I don't. It's not like Minnesota where they just got blasted with negative
Yeah.
60 degrees. And so I don't have to worry about frost footings or heaving or anything like that related to those specific things. And so I have no reason to be dormant in the winter.
Okay.
However, this winter was a little rough on me on the cash flow. So I'm hurting a little bit right now, but
Oh,
I've got jobs on the books right now, and I'll stay good. And that cash flow from the growing season, for the most part, if I am dormant in the winter, does help keep me afloat. And
yeah.
so whether it may not be ideal in what I want to do, or I don't, like I said, I don't want to be dormant.
Yeah.
So hopefully, Lord willing, as Drummy gets around, new creation landscape services get around, and my local community and people start understanding that I actually do put my money where my mouth is, and I mean what I say, and I always follow through, I'll get there. So I'm not really too
Yeah.
worried about it.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Very, very cool. You're still so young into your business, right? Still new,
I
and
really am.
yeah, you'll get to hone in on what you need to do for each winter and that winter fund and stuff if need be, and or doing more year-round work as your name and reputation get out there, as you said. That's awesome. So what are your future plans or goals for your business?
Okay. Right now, I have small goals
Okay.
because I have the bad tendency to set unrealistic expectations and/or goals,
Mm.
even on job sites. So right now, my expectations and my goals for my company is I am actually going to share just a little bit about my company
Okay.
for this year, for the 2019 growing season. I would like to add at least a minimum of 10 more clients,
Okay.
maintenance contracts. It doesn't necessarily have to be commercial or residential. I have actually got 3 already,
Hmm.
and it's just February, so
Yeah.
I'm making good progress there. But holistically, looking to the bigger, to the bigger picture. I mean, I would love to have 15 trucks, and 50 employees. The more trucks, the more employees, the bigger the headache. Well, I can handle that, or at least I think I can. So um, those are realistically my goals as far as my business, at least for this next season. So
Okay. Very, very cool. Yeah, and I'm likewise too. The as far as the customers go, for me, the phone started ringing last week with people
yeah,
already trying to book, and they're like, we tried last year, and everybody was so busy and all that sort of stuff, right? So I thought this year we're just gonna start calling really early, right? Call in February and get us on the schedule before,
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of cool as well. I was actually pretty surprised that the phone started ringing so early this year. But always a good problem to have, getting customers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For me here, it's like we haven't had a winter. I
Yeah,
mean, it's February 4th, and literally I can walk outside right now. My grass needs to be mowed because it's full
yeah,
of weeds that
yeah,
are, and like it's 70 degrees outside. So
yeah.
we've had we haven't really had a winter here, but I know
Okay.
you guys have.
Yeah. Well, on the West Coast here, yesterday it snowed for the first time all winter.
Oh, really?
So it's been so warm and mild.
Okay, so
In
you
fact,
you get it.
yeah, on the news last week, they're showing all the cherry blossom trees starting to blossom and people who have planted
Wow.
bulbs with them coming out of the ground. And then yesterday, if you look on my Instagram, I posted a picture. It wasn't much. It was like maybe an inch and a half of snow that hit. Um, but we got snow. And I was like, oh. And then they're talking about this Arctic front, and it's going to be really, really cold this week. And we might get snow again later on Thursday and stuff. But then the temperatures will get back up, right? But I was like, man, I knew it was too good to be true to escape, complete winter with nice warm weather and stuff, while the rest of Canada is like buried in snow. They're like digging out, they're getting hammered, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So I was like, dang, knew it was too good to last. So this is another question where when I ask people, um, they sometimes have to think about it. This was a question actually that was asked of me on one of my podcast interviews. I was interviewing people, asking them questions, and the person kind of turned the tables on me and said, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? And I was like, yeah, sure. So they asked me this question, and I thought it was such a cool question that I started adding it to everybody else's interviews. And that is, what's the weirdest thing you've seen or has happened to you during your business?
Right. Okay. Well, two things actually pop into my head, honestly, right
Okay.
off the bat. But one was a weird raccoon that I ran into. Okay, and that's like that should be enough to grab anybody's attention right there. Any storytelling. So there was this raccoon once, but it was weird, but that's not actually the weirdest thing. Like, the weirdest thing is I had a customer once. It wasn't my first customer, but it was my first customer off Thumbtack. I don't know if you're familiar with Thumbtack.
Other people have mentioned it.
It's like it's a third party group that gets you leads, and it's up to
Okay.
you as a contract. It's like Advisor. There's so many
Yeah.
different third party
Yeah.
apps out there like that. And so it was my first job that I actually got approved through Thumbtack, and it was great. I mean, this was like at the beginning of my business. I had done some work before in the past, and so I mean, this is like when the zeal is like through the roof,
Mm.
like you're on that high, when you go talk to customers for the first time, it's your name, you get to sell yourself, you get to do and to say whatever the heck it is that you need to say or do, And so it was great. I mean, we hit it off. I mean, we really spent most of the time not even talking about business, which some
Okay.
would say is not professional, but I'm a very personable person. I like to be relatable, and I
Yeah.
think that ultimately wins me over the next guys because people pay for a good attitude. Mark my
Yeah.
words, they really do. So, um, we hit it off. I made her backyard. It was a complete wreck. It was flower beds around the pool. And so she
Yeah.
really she wanted her bougainville. That's what she said. She needed her bougainville, And so everything was good. Everything went off about a hitch. It was a day job is all it was. And everything worked real great. And this was early springtime. So she messaged me throughout springtime, the summertime, and had nothing but praises. I got a lot of phone calls from her. She went on other apps like Nextdoor apps, all these different apps, and just New Creation Landscape Services, just sung the highest praises about my company from all the nearest hills and mountaintops. And that, my friends, if you're listening, is word of mouth and how it works. But then the winter came.
Mm-hmm.
And need I say more? Then the winter, and let's just say about 90% of her plants didn't make it.
Mm.
And it was the first time. Okay, let me back up. So she sent me pictures of the things that didn't make it, and it was okay. You know, I at this point in time didn't really have a suggestive plant, a waiver. Um, I didn't have anything like that. You know, that would alleviate responsibility on my part as a contractor once a final walkthrough is commenced, and
Mm.
things like that. And so I didn't have any of that. So really, at this point in time, it was what I said I was going to do. If I said I was going to do it. So I agreed to replace all the plants that were lost. We scheduled the date. Something came up to where I just absolutely could not make it. And that kills me. I mean, it kills me so much because of the convictions that I have in business sometimes can really be a hindrance to me. And so I absolutely could not make that date, and I rescheduled. And I think this is where things started to go downhill.
Mm.
And she wasn't a fan of me at this point in this story. So eventually got between emails going back and forth about text. It eventually got to the point where she blamed me for the weather.
Mm.
And I'm not being dramatic. I'm not making words up. I mean, literally her words. She said, well, this is your fault because of the weather. Now, ultimately, I think what she meant is because it was my fault as a contractor for not warning her about Texas weather.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not the fact that we can get 13 degrees. That's about our low here is 13 degrees. It's not that we get that low, but it's that it goes from 90 to 13 in about 3 hours. And it's that drastic sudden change in temperatures with newly plants that can affect them. And so my weirdest story is this customer literally blamed me for the weather, in her words. And she literally continued to berate me on social media, actually. Like, I did a post forever ago where I was taking care of a buddy of mine, tree trimming. We actually traded out work. And so he is a supervisor for a local pest company. And so he was like, hey, man, I know you got a problem. Would you be willing to trade out some work? I was like, heck yeah, dude, because time is money. If I could trade out work any day of the week, I'm actually for that, believe it or not. And so, like, if I need to get my expanded metal re-welded on the back of my tailgate, and he's like, man, I tell you what, my front looks like crap. Would you be willing to landscape it for me? Sure. What's the bill? It cost you $2,700? Cool. I'll see if I can't match that for you, and give them a good little landscape. So I've been known to barter and trade and exchange work for people before. So that was so weird to me. It was weird because it's like, I've never dealt with that before. Like, this lady got so mad and blamed me for the weather. And, because I didn't have my heart machine that day, I got blamed for the weather. So that was weird. That was weird.
Yeah, that would be pretty weird. That reminds me of when I do, I call them lawn renovations, lawn renos. In the spring here, we get a lot of moss because of all the rain. So lawns can be just like this thick shag carpet of moss that you literally grab an edge of it and pull it up, and it like pulls up like a carpet, and there's like just dirt underneath. So, I'll put in moss control and then go power rake it. But because of the amount of moss, you're left with like dirt. And then, I'll aerate it, reseed it, put some fertilizer, some lime, and then top dress the whole thing. And, with all the work and materials and all that sort of stuff, it can get pretty costly. And customers always find it odd that I always say, I guarantee my work, but I don't guarantee results. And the reason I say this is I said, I can guarantee what I can control. I can guarantee that everything I've quoted you for, all these steps, all these things that are needed to renovate our lawn, I will do. And I will use the best materials available to me to do those. Why I don't guarantee results is once I do all that, I'm gone. And it's up to you. It needs to be watered twice a day. That seed has to stay wet. If it dries out, even, in contact with the air, it can dry out. Once that seed germinates, I say, seed can stay fresh in the bags in the store for years. You got to wet it to germinate it. Once it gets wet, if it dries out at any point, it could die off. So it's up to you. So I can't do all that work. And then 2 months later, you call me because you haven't watered it and say, I want my money back, or I want you to come put new seed, or I want you to do this, because it didn't work. Well, that's not my issue, right? My issue is I'll guarantee all my work, but I don't guarantee the results. Now, if you follow the steps, there should be no reason why that lawn isn't going to work, because I've done it thousands of times and they've all turned, relatively beautiful. You might have a patch or two that might not come through, which is normal. And I'll come and, reseed those areas if you need me to, but there's a charge to that if I come back and reseed an area. But the whole lawn as a whole, if I show up and nothing has taken and it hasn't worked at all, I know there's a problem, right? You haven't watered, you haven't done your part. And I always start those conversations when people say, we want you to renovate our lawn. And they always find this odd too. I'll say, do you really? Like, are you sure you know what you're, I'm like, work it's going to take. I'm like, are you sure you know what you're getting into here? I said, that moss, it grows without any help. It stays green all year long. It'll grow on a tree. It'll grow on a roof. Doesn't need dirt to grow. But lawns take, in this climate, because this was all temperate rainforest, it takes a lot of work to keep a lawn healthy. And just because I do a lawn rental this year doesn't mean, because most people think that that's it. They'll do it and they're going to have a beautiful lawn for 10 years. No. I said, there's two. I said, that saying about death and taxes? I said, well, here there's three: death, taxes, and moss will come back. So don't, yes, you're going to die guaranteed. Yes, you're going to have to pay your taxes. And yes, the moss will come back. So don't think this is a one time this year and your lawn's going to be great. Next year, after a winter of rain, it'll start to come back. So you always got to, like you said, you didn't have at that time, I'm sure you do now, have a sort of, something. And again, it goes back to those lessons, right? You'll learn. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to learn. You're going to figure out this along the way, and you adapt every year. 13 years in business that I've been, and now I have this customer for the first time ever asking me for a refund because he says I wasn't there on a certain day, or that there was no leaves to clean, even though his yard is covered in trees. It's like, if I didn't clean the leaves, where'd the leaves go? They blow away to the neighbor's yard? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? But it's like, so you start to think, okay, do I need to now start implementing for residentials? I've never had contracts. Do I need to? So you're always learning. You're always trying to adapt, and you take these things that come up, things that you would never think that somebody would say, or somebody like, with plants dying and the, customer blaming you. I know a lot of guys, because I've heard that from other people too, with plant installs, and a lot of guys will purposely now go and buy all the plants at like Home Depot because they guarantee the plants for a year. And so that they're like, if the plants don't make it, they just go back to Home Depot and it doesn't come out of their pocket other than the labor.
That's actually smart. And I have thought about that actually.
Yeah.
I've yet to do it. But
yeah. Because they guarantee for 1 year, right? Very, very cool. So that was a interesting, weirdest thing that's ever happened. Okay, so this next question, another one of my favorites. So I want you to share your best piece of advice with someone or those just starting out in the business. But I want you to think of this as somebody who somebody who you would only want the best, you would only want to give the best advice for. You want to see this person succeed. What would you say if somebody came up to you and said, Chris, I'm thinking about starting a lawn care business. What's your best piece of advice for me?
Right. Well, my best piece of advice would be networking. Okay. Honestly, networking. And I don't mean like in a social media, go to Grant Cardone's 10 times growth conference. No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, ask your dad. Go to your if he's still alive, like go to your grandpa, like go to other business owners, call and ask, and just glean, and I mean glean, 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 glean as much knowledge as you can before anything. That would be my biggest advice, because man, I went in this just thinking I knew it all.
Mm.
Because I would like to say that I'm a fairly intelligent human being. I would like to think that I at least sound like I know what I'm talking about. And I went in thinking I got this.
Mm.
Oh, I got this. Oh, and I knew that there were things that I was going to bump my head against. I knew that there were going to be things that I would not know, and that I, like you said, I would have to adapt. But I mean, it truly, at the end of the day, if I go back and look and search within my heart, I would know that ultimately was just superficial. I mean, I was blind. And so
Mm.
any advice that I would give to anybody who's going into business is keep your mouth shut and glean as much as possible. And obviously that's networking, man. And I
Yeah.
challenge any one person, anybody, that I can show you your net worth by your network.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to say, man, honestly, like, so I can't get this blade off. I don't, dude. Okay. Did you turn it to the left? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Don't be afraid to swallow your pride and
Yeah.
ask, get help. So networking would be my advice to the person who's starting out, man.
Awesome. Very, very good advice. I haven't had anybody talk about that before. And as you said, you actually said it. I was thinking in my head to add this piece, but you had said it, and that was that famous saying of your net worth equals your network. Yeah, it's just, I see it so often, and I'm the most introverted person. I think I'm the most introverted person out there, but I've really, yeah, yeah.
No, bro. Introverted business is a good thing. It really is, especially on
Yeah,
social media.
yeah. Well, I've talked about how a lot of people in my own family don't even know I have a podcast or anything like that, because I haven't told them, because
Really?
and if they knew, they would be like, shut the front door. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they'd be like, you have a podcast? Like, what is it?
You
Like
got
an
a
hour of,
podcast.
yeah, they're like, what is it? What is it? Like an hour of silence? Because like you don't talk. So, so I've really,
They won't even recognize you.
no, they
Pretty
wouldn't.
funny.
So they'd, I've really tried to come out of my shell through the whole process. And it was one of the reasons why I did the podcast, was because I saw my kids growing up being very introverted as well. And I looked back on myself and saw all of the missed opportunities I had because of being too shy. Like literally,
Yeah.
I remember I talked about that recording school that I went to and learned audio engineering and stuff. And they literally handed me on a silver platter an opportunity, a networking opportunity, to meet up with this local, producer, recording engineer, to go under his wing and stuff. And I chickened out because I was too shy. And I look at those things going like, where could that have taken me if I went that way, sort of thing. And so I see my kids now, and I'm like, I don't want them to do that. So I started the podcast. I start doing YouTube. I start, doing all this stuff that I would have never thought I would have done, because I want to see them, show them that if you go out of your comfort zone and you work hard, these opportunities will come, and you take advantage of them, right? Yeah, thing. And I remember when Echo called me and invited me to do that UAG for the first time, and they're like, you have to come to Chicago and do a tour and stuff. And I was freaking out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I hate flying, for one. And this is like so out of my comfort zone, right? And I remember my daughter looking at me, and she says, you have to go. Like, you have to, right? And I was like, I know, like, yeah, I get it. Right. So it was like starting to, pass on to my kids. They were starting to see that, yes, you got to do it. You got to get out of your zone. You got to just take those opportunities. Yeah, I feel you there with the networking. Is just, it's so important. to
Absolutely.
get out there. Yeah. So I've got a couple more questions left for you. The first one here is I just want to hear the backstory to, you alluded to something earlier when I asked about your favorite piece of equipment, and you talked about that Kubota diesel, but you mentioned your truck and you said you're never getting
Yeah.
rid of that thing, right? So what's the backstory about that truck? Why is it so near and dear to your heart?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the reason why it's so near and dear to my heart is because it was my first truck that I had earned. I
Okay.
earned it, and gosh, how old am I? I'm 29, and so I think that was just a couple years ago. So I think
Okay.
I was like 26, 27,
Yeah.
26, 27 years old. My first truck that I bought for $800 that I earned. And it meant so much to me, when you have those moments in your life, when it's tangible, it's visible, you can see it, and you've literally worked by the sweat of your brow for something like that. No matter what it is, it could be, it could be a DVD player, it could be a new hot tub, like it doesn't matter, like whatever it is, that thing is for you. Like that's my truck. It's my '96 Chevy. I worked my butt off for that '96 Chevy while I was actually still working for an old boss of mine.
Okay.
To this day, I still refer to him as the boss. um, but I actually, despite how weird he was and misunderstood he was, and how much I wanted to do better than him, I will never ever badmouth him or speak ill of him, because he actually is what I credit to a lot of what I've learned over the years and
Okay.
the knowledge that I've obtained. Actually, he took me under his wing and pretty much, yeah, he was my mentor. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's why I love that truck. Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very cool. So the last question I have is we've alluded to part of it in the introduction of the podcast episode. And that was, saying to people that this was an interview with Chris Drumheller from New Creation Landscape, also known as Diggin with Drummy online. So my last question to people is usually, how can people find you online? And I know that first part there on Instagram, you're really active on Instagram. You do a lot of stories.
Yes.
You're usually very, very funny. Very moments that have me cracking up when I'm watching them. You're either in your truck or wherever, even in your living room, or and you're just I would say I'd call you crazy at times, as a term of endearment. Uh,
Yeah, no,
not in a
I
bad way,
received that. Okay, I
as a
received that.
term of endearment, right? It's just like in the way that watching your Instagram stories when you're just letting loose like that, it improves my day watching it, because it makes me feel better, and I have a chuckle or a laugh when you're doing it. I'm like how do I, especially because, like I mentioned, being so introverted, I'm like how's he do that? Like I could never do that, right? I'm like, people are how do you let loose like that those times? So yeah, how do people maybe talk a bit about your Instagram journey there, and other ways that people can find you online?
All right. Well, that's easy. All right. So hashtag call Drummy. You could literally Google it. That is how easy it is to find. Because I really am, and I really wanted to wear my hashtag call Drummy hat so you could see it, Leo. But it is the easiest way. Or at Diggin with Drummy,
Okay.
or Facebook.com / rough exterior for my personal Facebook. It's yeah, and so here's the thing. I've got a very small circle. I've got a very close group of friends, and they tell me all the time. They're like, man, you're funny, like, and they get it, but they tell me, it's like, that's not you. And I have to disagree with them, because it is me. Like the crazy side that you get a chuckle about, and I really do. I really means a lot to me. Your words, and I appreciate it. I really do. but it is me. Like, it is me. Like, I've spent a lot of times, not just in landscaping, but just being at work,
Yeah.
like, so we can all relate to just getting through the day, and so for me, and what I found is just to have fun, and I am such an introvert. People who see me walk in public, I mean, I walk, I walk with my head up. I don't walk with my head down, but I'm so quiet. Like, I get people that like text, or they message me on Instagram, like, "Oh, I saw you at Home Depot, man, you were fast." And I was like, "Well, because I'm about my business. Like, I'm trying to get into
Yeah.
the store, get what I need. I'm not trying to talk to anybody and get out,
Yeah.
and so I've always just got a kick out of that. That they say it's not you, but it is you. And so I listen. There's a guy on Instagram, on YouTube, who I have been watching for close to 10 years, and his name is Roman Atwood.
Okay.
And he's the Smile More guy. He used to do pranks with like Dennis Roddy Deeds and Vitaly and all those people back in the day, but he really started to separate himself from that crazy nonsense and reintegrated himself into the YouTube society as a family man. And so that is my biggest inspiration, to just be crazy, to be funny, to be too much, is because it does. I feel like that motivates and inspires people to not really worry so much about their problems or the things that they go through. But most importantly, I want to remind people that I have my problems too. So just because I get on social media and I choose to be happy, that is a choice that I make.
Yeah.
And so I hope that people get inspired to do the same thing. So if you want to follow me at Diggin with Drummy, it's that easy. Or just Google hashtag call Drummy, and I'm sure you can find me somewhere.
That's awesome. And you mentioned that you have earlier before the recording that you do have a YouTube channel as well. You haven't produced anything on there as of yet. But I'm guessing maybe there's an inkling, or maybe sometime in the future you might think about doing some of that. So if people want to check out or subscribe in advance as some motivation for you, how can they find your YouTube channel?
Okay. Well, my YouTube channel is just Drummy.
Okay.
Just Drummy. And I tell you what, if there's ever a motivation or a push that I may need to get on YouTube, I'll tell you what, if there's a way that I could get even just 100 followers from this podcast, your boy will probably upload his very first YouTube video. So let's just start small, right? Let's be realistic.
Awesome. So thank you very much for coming on to the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. It was awesome talking with you, Chris.
Thank you, Julio, man. It's been a pleasure, man. I'm super flattered, super honored. And yeah, here's to next time, brother.
Yeah, there you go. All right.